Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen. With me today is entrepreneur and Abraham Hicks fan Louis D'Souza. This is your Daily Dose of Happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today. And once again, our friend Anne-Marie is off with her family on holiday this week, but we will expect her back next week with some stories to tell, I'm sure, because anytime that she's away on holiday, she has lots of opportunity to experience time with her family, and there's always something that comes out of that. But in the meantime, my friend Louis D'Souza is here in the studio, and the global studio, I guess I could call it. It's not like we're all in one place. We're in like 3 different places here. But Louis, I wanted to tell you that lately I've been struggling with some stuff. And I was really looking forward to doing the show today because I always get a lot of energy out of doing the show. You know how that works, right? And I was thinking about something that you talk about a lot. You talk about, it's all about reversing momentum. And if you don't like the way the momentum is going, you got to change your thoughts. So you start changing the momentum. I was really struggling with that in a big, big way. I got to tell you, I was really struggling with it, but I kept going back to, well, that's what Louis keeps saying. That's what Louis keeps saying. So I didn't know what else to do because most of my usual tricks didn't work today. So I just took the day off. I'm going to leave it all behind. I'm going to say, screw it. And you know what? The momentum really slowed tremendously. I can't say it's all gone, but it slowed down. So thank you for that little bit of tidbit that actually stuck in my head. I appreciate that.
Yeah, you're most welcome. A lot of people think they've got to go from negative to positive, but just slowing down the negative vibe can be hugely beneficial along the way.
No doubt about that. Well, we have a guest joining us today who I'm sure can teach us a whole bunch on this topic. His name is Goodman, and when you read his profile, well, I'll let him tell the story because I'm not even sure I can tell this story. When I first saw it, I got sick to my stomach at what he went through. What amazed me is that not only did he come through it with flying colors, and he actually has turned it into an amazing career path for himself. But I don't want to spoil the story, so I'm just going to bring him on and let him tell it. Lion, first of all, thank you for joining us. Second of all, like we were saying before the show, you got a great first name. And third of all, how you doing?
Thank you, Walt. I'm really happy to be here, and I'm doing great, actually. So I love being here on your podcast and sharing my story, sharing my background, sharing what I do, because I love what I do. I love the work I get to do, which is to help people clear their limiting beliefs permanently and completely from their psyche, and then create what they want in life because they're no longer bound or blocked by that old system. So I'm happy to be here.
And you have more than one reason to be happy to be here because you had an absolutely terrifying thing happen when you were 26, I think it was.
Yeah, that was a long time ago.
Thank goodness. I'm glad. But wow.
Yeah. The day you don't die is a good day.
Yeah. But tell people in very, very short terms what happened. We don't want to just terrorize and traumatize the audience, but give them an idea what happened.
Right. Well, yeah, it was a 24-hour experience, so I'll have to shorten it down to just 2.4 minutes. I was 26 years old. I had graduated with a degree in consciousness studies from the University of Colorado, which is one of the first degrees granted in that field. And nobody was hiring people with degrees in consciousness studies. So
gee, I wonder why.
I couldn't find a job. I couldn't figure out why. So I decided to become a traveling salesman. That seemed like a good idea at the time. So I was traveling around in an RV, selling jewelry and gift items, and whenever I was traveling, I'd stop and help people whose cars had broken down. I was just one of those nice guys on the roads that would stop and help you. So I was traveling from Las Vegas to LA through the Mojave Desert, and there was a guy with his car broken down, and so I stopped to offer him help. I'm going to shorten this down to micro moments here. He ended up traveling with me for 3 days. I grew to trust him, sent him on errands. And the third night out, he pulled out a gun and shot me 4 times in the head. And that experience, I could make it a lot longer than I will.
I'm glad that you kept it short. Thank you.
Yeah. It started an 8-hour conversation with him. I kept him talking because I figured if I kept him talking, he wouldn't shoot me again. We ended up going into his whole background, why he did it, why he chose that path, what was going on with him. I had a background in psychology and understanding of spirituality, so I knew that if I could keep him talking, I wouldn't die. And I ended up feeling pretty invincible because I had left my body and was looking down with great amusement at this thing that was occurring. And also I was just filled with love and light. So I was speaking to him from that place, and he was as transformed as I was. And we ended up letting each other go. And he went off to live his life, and I drove myself to the hospital, where I found out that 2 of the bullets had grazed my skull. So I figured out that I had a very hard aura.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, my mind boggles at what you just described. It almost seems impossible, to be honest. When you say it that way, it almost seems impossible.
Yeah.
But you survived it, and you survived. And how on earth? I mean, that's got to hurt. I don't know the way to say it. You got to be in pain, and yet somehow you were able to carry on a conversation. And I guess maybe because of the out-of-body experience, but you were able to do it from a point of love. That's freaking extraordinary.
It was an extraordinary experience, and I mean, we could go into lots of detail, but my story has been published widely, and a movie was made about it based on my story, which you can find on my website. So rather than go into more detail, I'll just say go to my website.
Yeah,
you'll find Lion's near-death experience, and it is an extraordinary tale. Yeah,
unbelievable. Well, apparently that didn't dissuade you. In fact, it actually encouraged you with your career path. Tell us about what happened there.
Well, interestingly, because I had been studying spirituality and had taken lots of workshops and trainings and studied with masters and gurus, I was already kind of awake at that age. And the incident of being shot actually grounded me. And I knew I needed to get grounding because I was up here too much. And so I ended up getting a job as a headhunter, which is kind of ironic, don't you think?
Very.
I didn't even know what a headhunter was, but I became a recruiter, and that started a 25-year career in executive search. And at the same time, I was exploring consciousness and doing shamanic practices and studying other people's work and really just exploring myself and consciousness and the universe, which I find the most interesting topic around. So, and then when that business ended, I then became a coach and a healer and a teacher of this methodology that I had put together.
And tell us a bit about the methodology, because you have some very interesting concepts going on there.
Yeah, it's called the Clear Beliefs Method. And the way it came about was that through all these workshops and trainings, looking back, I realized I was trying to figure out how to fix myself. There was clearly something wrong with me. And so I had to fix myself. So I was trying to figure out what would fix me. Fortunately, after 25 years of doing all that, I realized I didn't need to be fixed in the first place.
Good, yeah, great. I love that.
but the urge was a good urge in a good direction, and so through all that time, I accumulated more than 100 workshops and trainings. I accumulated the things that really worked to transform me. Mm-hmm. Each piece that went, wow, I said, what was it about that worked? And I realized in analyzing it that whenever that big wow happened, when there was a big shift in my thoughts, feelings, behaviors, relationships, that there was a belief change. And so that got me interested in beliefs. What are they? Where do they come from? How do they function? And that's really what took me to an understanding of what are the principles of the mind that allow us to clear an old limiting belief or a negative belief out of the psyche, completely gone, and it doesn't come back. And I also said, well, why do most techniques not work that way? And then I had to learn and understand what it was about these processes that made them so powerful. And what I discovered is that most approaches to belief change are unidimensional. It's like you could think a different thought. And that's great mentally, but it may not impact the subconscious mind, the emotions, or the spirit. Or you could get spiritual and you could say, okay, I give it all up to God and I'll just do whatever God tells me. And that's great, except it may not impact the mental body, the physical body, or the emotional body. or you could beat on pillows and emote, and that's great for the emotions, but it may not impact the rest of the bodies that we have. We are multidimensional beings, and our experiences create beliefs, which means the beliefs are multidimensional. And in order to clear beliefs completely, you have to use a multidimensional technology to get rid of them multidimensionally. Otherwise, different parts are left, and that's why they keep coming back and back and back and back, and they don't seem to ever disappear. So we've learned how to actually disappear limiting and negative beliefs fairly rapidly, completely. They don't come back. And then when you clear them completely, then you can plant the new beliefs. Then the affirmation really takes and starts manifesting in your life. And that's when life changes.
That's really interesting. And I want to revisit that last bit, especially in a few minutes. But I want to bring Louis in part because you described in your story how you had that out-of-body experience. And Louis has spent quite a bit of time here on the program telling us about his experiences out of body. So Louis, if there's anybody who can interview somebody else about their experiences, it's you. So I'm going to ask you, what kind of questions do you have for Lion?
I'm just trying to remember how you phrased your out of body experience. So you were in a car with somebody, so you were wide awake when you had this experience.
Yes. And I woke up more.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. No, I understand.
It woke me up further. Yes.
Yeah. No. Completely understand that. The way I understand out of body experience is basically the body is a vibrational interpreting machine. So when you hear different sounds or different vibrations. When you see different colors, which are different vibrations. When you feel different textures, different vibrations, etc. So when you tune into the ability to onto another station, you can go into the out-of-body arena. And there's a very specific reason that I don't talk about it that's out-of-body, but more tuning into a different frequency, because I feel it makes a lot more sense. So very few masters are able to leave their body while they're fully awake. It is a very advanced technique at will. Okay, not in extreme circumstances, etc., but at will. A lot of people have had out of body experiences, usually when they go to sleep or focus on it, etc. So it's really interesting that you had, for me, an awake out of body, because it can happen and it's very possible, well documented. But it's quite a unique experience. I haven't had it, for example. And yeah, it's just interesting because you kind of like in two places at the same time from the seeing and hearing and tasting and touching perspective, although it is slightly different, when with the out of body senses. But yeah, you get an idea of what I'm saying.
I do. I do. This wasn't exactly a forced out of body experience because although I call it a near death experience, it was near death only because I could have died easily had the bullets been aimed slightly differently, right? So I wasn't actually near death, but I knew enough spiritually, and having done meditation and yoga and studied the ancient texts, that I didn't want to die angry or upset. So the first thing I did was I went through my past and I forgave everyone, including this guy, for what how they'd hurt me, and I asked for forgiveness for anyone that I had hurt. And then I was ready to go home. I mean, I really saw it as, okay, it's time to go home. I'm only 26. I don't know what the heck's going on, but I guess it's my time. So that connection to source brought me out of my body. And I could look down and see what looked like a little dollhouse model of a van in which this drama was going on. And it was amusing from that perspective. It's like,
that's really mind-blowing. It was amusing. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I was basically ready to depart. And when the fourth bullet hit me, I found myself back in my body. And I wasn't quite sure what had happened or how the bullet had gone through my head because it was coming from the side. So that's when I realized this is kind of weird. I'm supposed to be out there, but now I'm back here. And that's what began the whole conversation of when I looked at him, he freaked out and thought, you know, why aren't you dead? You're supposed to be dead. I shot you 4 times. And I went, here I am. So,
yeah.
That's how it ensued in the experience.
Yeah. You know, Lion, I just remembered I actually have had a similar experience, and I'll paint the picture. I was in South Africa. I was born there. Spent 27 years there before I came to the UK. And, I was just going to my work, which was a shopping center. I developed photos there during my student years, and I loved walking barefoot. So I was barefoot. I had a little backpack on my back, which had my swimming costume and towel in it. I had my wallet in my back pocket. And I had shorts and a t-shirt, and that was it. And as I was coming up to the, shopping center, 5 guys came and attacked me. So the one guy came up to my stomach, and I was in the middle of 7 years of Kung Fu training. So the guy came up to my stomach and started pounding it. I just tightened, you know, the muscles of the stomach. So it was just like hitting a brick wall. One guy was pushing me against the wall, and the other guy was trying to grab my backpack, and I was holding on to it. But everything just slowed down, and I was like, what's going on here? And I wasn't scared in any shape or form. Then I lifted out of my body, and I saw this whole thing. I saw the 5 guys around me. The smaller guy was punching me in the stomach, or he was coming around to do it again. I saw that there was a guard at the entrance of the shopping center. I saw that there were 2 girls going up to the guard telling him, look what's happening over there. You know, and all of this was like, oh wow, what's all this? And then, all my Kung Fu training kicked in. I said, okay, I'm going to hit him in the nose, going to send his nose into his head. I'm going to kill him, and all the rest of it. And then another part of me, the spiritual side, because I've also been very spiritual from a young age, looking at that side of the world. It said, say your spiritual word, your chant. So I just thought, do I hit him in the nose or do I chant? And then suddenly I thought, let me just chant. So I just started inside me, just start saying, you know, like the and instantly these guys just started vanishing. They just vanished. The 2 girls had called out the guard. The guard was looking at the whole thing, wasn't interested, and went straight back in. And the girls were watching this, and I was coming up to the stairs, and we're going up the escalator. The girls were just ahead of me. And they turned to me and said, weren't you scared? I said, no, I didn't want to kill them. So it's like I just passed the spiritual test, and I just lost the spiritual test.
That's a great story. Great story.
But, yeah, it was very interesting that I actually decided to choose, because I've always known that it's kind of like a choice in my life between power and love. And, in that instant, I chose right. But as I was going up those escalators, my ego went ting.
Yeah, I've told my story to many times to many audiences, but my favorite is at San Quentin Prison in the Bay Area. I've been invited to teach there many times, and whenever I tell this story, the prisoners are just like wide-eyed. It's like, oh my God. And they often ask, weren't you angry? Weren't you, didn't you want to kill him? I went, no, I was in this state of
You're totally peaceful. Yeah. You can't really explain it. It was like the whole situation was just the pressure of the situation was just vanished, just went into a poof of air. Yeah.
One of the other things I realized about my incident is that, I was so relaxed in the position I was sitting in that, because I was in love and light, I was just breathing in that space, ready to let go, that when the 4th bullet came and hit me, it actually pushed over my head, which allowed the bullet to glance off. Had I had any anger or tension or fear in me,
it would have been a lot worse.
Yeah, it probably would have blown the top of my head off.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, amazing.
I don't even know where to begin. That's why I'm having Louis do the question asking here. And Louis will tell you it's very rare for me to be at a loss for words. So this is an unusual moment. I know where I'm going to go. I'm going to go to what you were talking about earlier about the teachings that you do and how you integrate the various methodologies into your what do you call your approach again that you had a name for?
Clear beliefs method.
Clear beliefs method, right? So let's talk a little bit more about that integration, because I think that's really a fascinating thing that you're doing.
What would you like to know about integration?
Well, let's go into a little detail about what's integrating and how
Okay, good.
how it's working.
Good.
The other thing I'd like to know is, what is the word clear? Why did you bring that in?
Yeah, good idea. Yeah.
It wasn't taken on the internet.
Okay.
Fair dues. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Actually, the term came to mind. My website before was called Transform Your Beliefs, and that wasn't quite it. And then I realized, clear beliefs. And I looked and went, oh my God, it's not taken. So I grabbed it. And that became the source. But really what we are doing is we are clearing the past, clearing the programming that the person has accumulated throughout their lifetime. And when we're children, everybody knows that we're sort of on record mode for the first 4 to 7 years of life. We take in all that programming. But I realized through studying developmental psychology is that the children are actually wanting to be programmed. It's not that we're just being indoctrinated. It's that children want to survive.
Do you understand why we want to be programmed?
Yes, absolutely. Because
I've got an understanding of that too. That's just what yours was.
Yeah. Well, our survival instinct is at the front of our ego. Mm-hmm. And if you are liked by someone, they are less likely to throw you to the wolves. And, so as children, we want to be liked by our parents. And so we become like them. This is a natural instinct. And so we take on their beliefs, we take on their behaviors, we take on their patterns because that will ensure our survival. Mm-hmm. If you become like someone, they will like you. And so we welcome their programming because we want to belong. Belonging is one of the strongest instincts we have as social animals. So it's really important to the child to become like their parents. And that's one of the reasons why we take on their beliefs.
Do you take on the belief that we choose our parents from a non-physical standpoint?
I'm very careful when I use the words I believe because I know that beliefs create a reality. So when I'm asked questions like this, I say, well, I'd rather not believe anything and just, but we could look at it as a belief and say, our spiritual beliefs, like we choose our parents, is that valid? And I say, well, in my experience, when I'm working with people, past life information comes in, that kind of choice comes in. I treat it as just, it's what is in that person's experience. I don't posit it as true or false or right or wrong or good or bad. I just avoid those things. So I say, in my experience, it appears to be so. So it's a safe way of avoiding my indoctrinating anyone else with my beliefs.
That's fair. I like that. I like that a lot. Something else I want to ask you too. I like the way you phrased it. You described it as a natural instinct to be liked, to belong. And the word instinct is what jumped out at me. Mm-hmm. The reason it jumped out at me is for quite some time now, I've realized that I have a certain frustration with science because science likes to refer to the word instinct to explain many behaviors among animals and insects and just about any kind of living creature that's not human. And my issue with it is they don't seem to really have a clear idea of what they mean by it. You can talk to 10 different scientists and get 10 different definitions. So I'm curious to know what your definition is. When you say that that children have a natural instinct, what does that mean to you?
Because I see the world through this belief lens, and it's just one lens. You could see it through many others. You could see it through the emotional lens or the thought lens, or, I just happen to like the word beliefs. For me, beliefs are the earliest programming we have as animals. For example, an amoeba will be attracted to things that are sweet like sugar and will be repelled by things that are toxic. So we could say that amoeba, the single-celled creature, has an instinct to seek pleasure and avoid pain. My friend Jeremy Lent calls this the patterning instinct. We have an instinct to look at the world, look at what's happening, identify patterns, and then use those patterns for our survival. Mm-hmm. So it's a pattern seeking, pattern identification, and pattern use process. Now, some of those patterns are biologically programmed. So for example, a baby knows how to suckle when it comes out of the womb. But inside the womb, they're already experiencing, they're already identifying patterns, and they're already forming patterns out of their experience. So, for example, infants in the womb can identify the difference between their mother's voice and their father's voice. That's a pattern identification system. When they come out, they're in this swirl of experience, and they're trying to sort through them. Mm-hmm. And so, some of it's biological. It's like avoid places that are sudden drops. You can put an infant in a place where there's an illusionary sudden drop or a piece of glass over a drop, and they back away. So these are programmed in beliefs, just like DNA could be said to be a biological form of belief. This molecule goes here, this molecule goes there, we create this protein during this time. So, when I see it through the belief lens, I'm seeing everything that way. It's just one way to see it. But so an instinct is just a built-in pre-program that ensures our survival.
So let me follow up then with the question that to me makes the whole concept an interesting topic, the idea of an instinct, and that is this pattern identification process. Is it conscious?
No, it's. I mean, how much we've all seen the iceberg analogy, right? The consciousness is up at the very top. You could use a spoon to change it, but everything below water and even above water is in the subconscious mind. You can become conscious of it. That's one of the cool things, is that we can become conscious of anything. We can become conscious of our biology, of our emotions, of our thoughts, of our subconscious programs. But naturally, it falls below the conscious level, the subconscious level. So, and again, we can become conscious of anything. You can go diving into your DNA and see what it's made of and experience it directly. Not many people do that trip, but it's possible.
So then I have to do a follow-up question. Since what we're talking about is subconscious, then my next question is, can you define what subconscious is?
Sure. It's anything that's not conscious. Which is pretty much everything else, it's like, so it's a big topic. So the good news is that, and this is where our techniques come in, we go down into the subconscious mind and communicate directly with the subconscious mind. But the subconscious mind doesn't speak in language like our verbal mind does. And this is why verbal techniques can only go so far. Because the first 2 years of life, we don't have language. We're not putting things in the form of language, but we are having experiences. We are coming to conclusions. They're experiential conclusions, like stay out of dad's way when he's angry. That's a experiential conclusion before there are words. And once we have language, then we start forming these pattern structures through language. But we have to get down to the feeling experiential level in order to make the change. Because that's where the programming is at the experience level. So we take people back in their memory systems to incidents in which something bad happened, a trauma or a pattern of abuse or something sad that was happening. And we look at the conclusions that were drawn from that experience. And so we're right down at the experiential level. We're using memory to go back to pre-verbal memories and then shifting the memory, which is in psychology called memory reconsolidation. So that's what we're doing. And then suddenly that child who was afraid of dad suddenly says, oh, dad's just angry. It's not my fault, right? And that changes everything. Now you've switched lenses. Now you're looking through a different lens of people can get angry. And if you stay out of their way, it's fine, versus I'm a bad person because dad's angry. So that's the work we do. We go right down into that core material and make shifts there so that people are freed from the burden they've been carrying their whole life.
Now, there are many people who've gone through variations on that in a number of different modalities, for sure. And we can point to a bunch of fields, I'm sure, between us. With varying degrees of success, you claim that you have a very high degree of success, and which is great. I mean, I'm curious to learn more about that. But I do know that some of the areas of failure tend to be in either areas where the person can't really remember a particular thing. There's something going on there, but they don't really remember what the event is. And the other being where they do remember the event, but nothing seems to uproot it. I'm curious, how do you look at those two kinds of situations?
I'll give you an example that actually all of our listeners can try out. Okay, this is a good experiment. So if you wouldn't mind, both of you, closing your eyes and feel what it feels like to hold the belief there's something wrong with me. Now, you probably don't believe it at the conscious level, but you can feel it. You can try it on like an outfit of clothing at a clothing store and see what it feels like to hold that belief. Just say it to yourself, there's something wrong with me, and feel what it feels in your body. And Walt or Louis, what are you noticing, how it makes your body feel?
I'm tasting sickness in my mouth right now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And Louis, how about you?
Because of my belief is when you know what you don't want, you have a better idea what you do want. I get slightly excited by it.
Okay, good.
Louis is definitely on a different plane.
yeah. Louis is a different kind of guy. Okay, so we'll go with you.
As long as I'm not spending more than 14 seconds on it, I don't think the universal law of attraction is going to amplify it negatively. But I have learned to appreciate to a large degree negativity in all its different shapes and forms.
Good for you. Well, that's a very advanced form of awakeness. So Walt, let's come back to you. Actually, you can both try this one. So just take that like an outfit of clothing and just take it and toss it aside, because we can try on other people's beliefs without buying into them, right? You don't have to buy the clothing that doesn't feel good. You could leave it in the store. So now feel what it feels like to hold the belief, I am a sacred and worthy being. Just close your eyes, say it to yourself, and see what that feels like. Walt, what is the feeling in your body?
Just a warm glow.
Mm-hmm. And Louis?
Yeah, just not much difference before or after. I have kind of programmed myself not to be affected by praise or criticism, if you know what I mean. So even to myself, specifically to myself, not to be affected by that too much. So there are certain things that really make me feel good. And when there's a lot of honesty, real honesty going on in myself or with others, then there's a sense of source or a sense of strength and passion there. Mm-hmm. But those words specifically don't mean a thing to me at all.
Okay, got it.
But they're just being straightly honest.
Yeah, no, that's good. So for you, it might the belief that might work to try on is I'm a human being, including all my glory and flaws. That might make it better. Yeah. So
yeah, more balanced.
Right. So the point here is that our beliefs create certain body sensations. And so your question, Walt, was how do you get to those and why does this work? If we're looking for a pattern, for example, I'm afraid of dad, or I'm afraid of men, or men are all bullies, or whatever, we start with the belief, but then we get to the body, the embodied experience of the belief. And then we track that back in memory. So that's a key trick of the mind, is that we can track body feelings and sensations back further than we can mentally. As soon as you try to remember and you're remembering in your mental mind, that is faulty. It's not very reliable.
It's like a smell will take you back in time.
Exactly. The smell is the smell brain is one of the oldest parts of the brain, and that's why those memories are so strong. So that's a way we get to the subconscious mind and the earlier memories. And people say, "Oh, I don't remember my childhood." Through all the processes we use, they do. They remember certain experiences just come to mind. Oh my God, I remember this. Even pre-language memories and even womb memories. So,
Lion, I just wanted to pause you there. Have you heard of Scientology's Dianetics engram?
Yes.
So the concept is really interesting. That they'll take any negative thing in your life, even bumping your toe, anything. They will look at it, expose it, and work through it. And they'll take every aspect of your life, every year of your life, and eventually, and this is why I was curious about your word clear, that they will, once they clear the person from pre-birth all the way to where they are currently, they'd call them a clear.
Right.
And these kind of people can read minds, and they'll sit in front of a panel of judges, and they will question them about any and every time of their life, and they'll be able to instantly tell you exactly what happened at every second, pre-birth, womb, the whole trip. They'll be able to tell you. So then they get elevated to the status of a clear, called a clear in Scientology. And I've seen it to be extremely effective, personally.
Yeah. I've had Scientology experiences, Dianetics clearing and that kind of thing. It's a
You've done it personally.
way. Yeah, I've done it personally, not very much, but tasted it. I've tasted lots of things.
Right.
It's one of the many ways to clear things. They tend to just focus on it until you get a floating needle, and then, they say you're done. I find that if you want to clear everything, people often ask me, it's like, well, can I clear all my beliefs? And I say, sure, but just make sure that you have an attendant who can change your diaper and feed you. Because we need beliefs to function in the world. It's like look both ways before you cross the street is a really good belief, not just for children, but also for adults. So for me, it's a matter of finding the beliefs that are interfering with your life, the things that are holding you back, the things that are causing resistance in the system, the things that are making you sick or breaking up your relationship, and going to those and clearing those. And then we also have plenty of positive beliefs, and those we don't mess with. Like if it's working for you, why bother making it? Getting rid of it. So mine's a very practical sort of healing path rather than, and it is spiritual in its nature, because when you clear a belief, you recognize you're not the belief. You are the being that took on the belief. So that's built into our system, but it's not primarily for turning people into, clear beings who are, what do they call them? Operating thetans and, can do magic. That's not what we do. We're doing psychological healing work and focused on clearing people's blocks and barriers and resistance in their life.
So I'm very curious now to kind of explore one particular overlap here between what you've been saying here, Lion, and what Louis was mentioning a few moments ago. He was talking about how in his own experience he has learned to experience things as sort of a balanced thing. He was talking about how you had this unpleasant experience, and he was finding a way to appreciate it and things like that. So I'll, for lack of a better term, I will call that the acceptance approach. And the approach you're describing is the clearing approach. And I'm wondering, in your view, where's the overlap between the acceptance approach and the clearing approach, and where are the differences?
Well, I just described a moment that's actually kind of the precious moment of our process. We guide people into an experience of their belief embodied. It includes visualization, it includes emotions, it includes all the senses. And then there's a moment where we say, do you want to keep this belief? And when the answer is no, we say, okay, take it off as if it's an outfit of clothing at the clothing store. And then, we get it out of them and off of them, out of all dimensions of self. And then we do a ceremony in which we discreate it, we uncreate it, we burn it in the sacred fire. And that process, it involves ritual, it involves all the senses. That moment is a moment of freedom. That moment is a moment where you go, oh, I'm not this belief. I took it on. I can take it off, and I can get rid of it. I can uncreate it because I'm the creator. That recognition that you're the creator is the same as Louis was talking about, I can create my own response to whatever's happening, positive or negative. So when you're the creator, you can create any belief that you want, or you can create the state of no beliefs. That's okay too. But we encourage people to create a new belief that will then, like planting a seed in fresh soil, it can then blossom and grow in life.
That's interesting. You use the word planting a belief that way in that context. I was thinking of a similar idea that's often used to describe habits. Instead of trying to break a habit, you replace an old habit with a new habit. Well, you're not really replacing per se. You're removing and then putting something else in, which isn't quite the same thing as replacing, is it?
Right, right. Well, I use this analogy of the garden. It's like if you wanted to build a garden, the first thing you do is you clear the rocks and weeds from the space, right? Because you don't throw your seeds on rocky, weedy ground. You're not going to get much to grow. But if you clear the rocks and weeds and you amend the soil, you turn it over, and then you plant your seeds, you're going to get a nice crop. You got to take care of it. You got to nurture it, but you're going to get a nice crop of flowers or vegetables or whatever you're planting. So the mind is the same. We have to clear the rocks and weeds out first. And then when we implant the new belief, the affirmation, and it's got to be the right kind of affirmation that works for the person, then something can blossom and grow. Then habits change naturally because I'm no longer the same person. This is change at the identity level. I'm no longer the person who's afraid of men. I'm now a person who accepts beings as they are and has good judgment to be able to discern whether I should be in a relationship with them or not. So that's the kind of shift we're doing, is deep down at the identity level. And then habits naturally change and life gets easier.
Okay. And Louis, I'm going to throw the same question to you. The question of what I labeled for you as being the accepting approach, and with Lion, I was labeling that the clearing approach. What do you see as the overlaps and the differences between the two?
I don't really.
Okay.
I think you're making a mountain out of a molehill, but I know I can say that to you, Walt. I could say that they both work, and they can work at different times, and you can even integrate them. I wouldn't necessarily want to split them up, but yeah.
Okay.
I know that you like analyzing things and breaking them down a lot, so. But I like incorporating a lot of things, but I don't think any of them's wrong or right or.
Well, that's what makes our personalities what they are. I mean, that's the way we look at
the question I'd want to ask Lion though would be, how do you define the word belief?
As I said before, it is the patterning instinct that the mind is based on. So I consider beliefs as the infrastructure of the human mind. It's the most basic component of how do you build a mind. It is identifying patterns, putting them into place to shift your behavior in order to survive. And so then in the conclusions you come to in order to get along with family and not be killed. And so that is the mechanism upon which everything else is built. It's a mechanism upon learning that learning is built on. This belief doesn't work very well, I'll replace it with this belief. Or I didn't have any knowledge about this and now I do. And so that's what's true. In school, we're indoctrinated with what's true. Mostly books written by, winners, dead white people who wrote the books about history. The winners get to write the textbooks, and so.
Yeah, I always ask Lions, I want to hear her story now.
Yes, right.
Not his story.
His story, her story, our story. Yeah, I agree with you. So, but as we awaken, we recognize more and more of the things that we were programmed with are not true or may not be true. And so when you're able to put everything on the chopping block and say, what's real? What's true? What's going to serve me and serve others? How can I live a life of virtue and be not just for myself, but for others and for the world? That's what we're after is what kind of person do you want to be in the world so that you're taking care of yourself, you're taking care of those around you, you're taking care of your community and the world. And from that place, you're now operating as sort of a universal being rather than as an ego. We're not throwing out ego because you won't get rid of your ego until you're dead. And once you're dead, for sure, you won't have an ego anymore. But up till that point, you will have one. So how can you make best use of it? How can you integrate it into a much wider vision of who you are?
So what has really clarified, helped, and formulated and made easier for me was the definition that Abraham Hicks gave me about what the word belief means. They like saying that it's a thought you think often. And I remember going to some house, and I was chatting to them, and there was this 14-year-old girl, and I said to her, belief's just a thought you think often. She said, Louis, I believe you're a nice guy, but I haven't thought about it often. And I was like all confused and thrown away. And then I had to go think about this. And then when I arrived back the next month, because we met monthly, I said to her, what's the difference between the word think and belief? Just one you think about more often. So you really should have said to me, Louis, I think you're a nice guy. Because you haven't thought about it often, you can't really use the word belief, because that is the difference between think and belief.
I love it.
You think more often about that thing. And, she accepted it and agreed with it after I explained it to her, which was quite interesting. I didn't expect her to. But it really helped clarify for me what the word belief means. And if it is just a thought you think often, you can change the thought, can't you?
Well, that's theoretically true. However, from my point of view, it's not just a thought you think often. It's a multidimensional structure of the mind that can be changed. That's mostly subconscious. It can be changed. You can change any belief or structure in your mind. But for most people, they're not thinking about their behavior much at all. They're operating automatically. They're thinking automatically. They're behaving automatically. They're reacting automatically. So it's hard to say those are thoughts that they think often, because they're just on automatic pilot. But there's programs running them that are deep subconscious programs. And those are what the mechanism is that I'm pointing to and saying that's the belief. It's the mechanism underneath the thought, underneath the emotion, underneath the automatic behavior, underneath the reaction. So that's a very deep infrastructural point of view, as opposed to a thinking point of view. If we were just mental beings, that'd be a perfectly good definition of belief. But we're not just mental. We're emotional, physical, spiritual beings as well.
The interesting thing I've perceived with emotion is that if you think something, it affects how you feel. And how you feel affects how you think. And they're completely intertwined. You can't separate them from my perspective. You can try your damnedest, but psychology seems to love the idea of separating them. You're a mind person or you're a heart person. But if you take the heart person, they're probably thinking nice thoughts. If you take the mind person, they're probably thinking analytical thoughts. But, so I just kind of realized that this whole thing's circular, and I can't change my emotions, but I can change my thought, which may change my emotions.
Right.
And
or you could change your beliefs, which would also change your emotions and
belief is a thought,
behavior
from my perspective. Yeah.
Right. But you also have behavior. You also have relationships. You also have a spirit body. This is all semantics, and it doesn't matter what we call it. I'm pointing to the same thing that other people call paradigms or frames or the maps of meaning. It's all the same stuff. We all are dealing with our human mind, and we could slash around, definitions and words all day. I'm a more practical person. How can we get people to shift so they become more awake, more free, and more able to create the life they want? So I'm okay with any definition you have, and if it works for you, that's great. That's a practical approach. Yeah.
I found in my own experience that if I can come up with any definition at all, I'm ahead of the game. So yeah, I'm with you on that one. Sometimes I don't even have a definition. It's like, okay, I don't know what's happening. Let's find out, because that's the best I can come up with.
Yeah.
So I do agree with you completely with the idea that you want it to be practical. So the way I've looked at it, is if you've got a glass of water and it's dirty water, if you keep on filling it with clean water, eventually that glass will become clean. The water in the glass will become clean. Yeah.
Oh, theoretically, yes. It also could be that, the amount of dirt becomes less and less to the microscopic level. But go ahead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That same difference. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm completely happy with that idea. So What I do and what I focus on really a lot is just the basic premise, the basic philosophy of my entire life, which is focus more on what you want and less on what you don't want, which I look at as putting clean water into my glass the whole time. More and more clean water. Therefore, I don't have to go and dig out the dirty water.
Yeah, and I think that works for you, Louis. I don't think it works for most people, because I work with people who have done law of attraction and Scientology and psychology and talk therapy and access consciousness. They've tried lots of things, and it hasn't worked for them. Now, first of all, I think that any technique can work for some people. So the problem is that when a technique works for someone, they go, aha, that's the magic key. Mm-hmm. And then they start teaching it or using it as a practitioner, and it doesn't work for everyone. So in my training, I teach people 15 different major techniques and processes, because everyone is unique, everyone's individual, and we don't know yet what's going to work for them. You happen to have a very strong mind. And so for you, you're able to, clear, you keep filling yourself with positive thoughts, and it works for you, which is fantastic. There's people who can will themselves into a positive state. Now, I think that's a very small percentage of the population, probably 3 to 5%. And then they go, all you need to do is just change your mind. And everybody else is going, yeah, I tried and it didn't work, because they don't have that kind of strong will. So everybody's got to find out what works for them. What I've done is I've accumulated processes, a number of different processes that seem to work for almost everyone. Not everyone, but almost everyone gets a big shift through our process, because it's not a one hammer, everything looks like a nail technique. It's a tool set that we can use for any kind of person.
Yeah, I found that to be the biggest challenge is trying to find the right process or set of processes for yourself.
Right.
And I think most of us have actually, if we've done any work on ourselves, that's the way we usually describe it, right? We did some work on ourselves. If we've done any work on ourselves, we've usually found some that work to some degree. We've had some success. Otherwise, we would have given up a long time ago and said, this is a bunch of crap. Forget all this stuff. But we don't do that because we find some successes. But the question that still remains unclear to me, I think you're right. I think your general approach is right, because everybody is different. But for any given individual, do you have to do like all 15 or whatever the number of processes is? Do you have to do all 15 to get there? Or is there a way to kind of shortcut and find out what's going to work for you?
We have at least tens of thousands of beliefs in our minds, probably hundreds of thousands. Many of them are neutral. That is a cat. That's a belief, but it doesn't have any emotional charge to it, right? I'm a terrible person. That has a lot of emotional charge, and that's going to get in the way of the person's life. Mm-hmm. So we look at what are the major blocks, what are the major clusters of beliefs, and we clear those major clusters. And that pretty much frees the person to start living their life. And then we give them techniques to use for when those other things come up. You walk into a room and somebody, suddenly you're reactive. We have techniques say, here, do this when that happens, and clear that belief at that moment. Because that's what life is. We move forward and something comes up, stuff comes up, right? So we clear as much of the weeds and rocks as possible. We get them moving forward, and then we give them shovels and backhoes to use for the rest of their life. I call it the machete technique, because if you have a machete, you're in the jungle, you can't move, you have a destination, but you can't, there's too much stuff in the way. But if you have a machete, you can clear whatever's in your way, and then you can take a step forward, and then you can clear something else in your way, and you can move forward again. And so if you have a machete in your hand, you can get all the way to your destination through a thick jungle, as long as you have the right tool to clear whatever's in your way.
Or you can go to a master who's already got the path, and he can show you.
No, I was just going to say.
There's always a better way, isn't there? It's like, or use a helicopter. Bring in the helicopter. That's all.
Well, the thought that was going through my mind is, I could use the machete, but is it true that there's growth in all directions, 360 degrees around me, and that the only thing I can possibly do is a machete, or is there another way out?
Also a good technique. Look, everything works if it works. I'm not prejudiced about my technology. It's like whatever works for you, that's great.
Yeah, I think that's really the key thing. But I want to go back to my earlier question though, and we're running out of time here, so that I guess I can't delve into
Already?
this the way I'd
Wow.
like to. Yeah, we've gone through 55 minutes already, but, I want to kind of try to hone in on one thing before we, do our finish up here. And that is, if I'm exploring something now, obviously, if I'm coming to you and your organization, you have specific methods that you guide people through. But if I'm just trying to explore on my own, trying to find my way, so to speak, what can I do to find my way to the processes that are going to help me the most?
Well, we have two major programs. One is for people who want to learn this methodology. That's called the Clear Beliefs Coach Training.
Okay.
They're clearing their beliefs during the training. It's a 20-week long training. People come out and go, "Oh my God, I've got more transformation than I have in my whole lifetime,"
Right.
in those 20 weeks. But then we also have a Clear Your Beliefs coaching program where the coaches that I've trained can help people who just want to get their stuff cleared out of their way. And so we offer both of those things. And then we have free programs and other things that we can use. But yeah, so that's what we do. There's two kinds of people who want to serve others with these techniques. They take the coach training.
Sure.
And people who just want to get their stuff cleared, and they take the Clear Your Beliefs coaching program.
Right. And you also have something else that's kind of cool too. You have beliefrelief.net. Tell us what that's all about.
Yeah, we've begun offering monthly free events where people can come and explore a particular topic inside themselves. So the first one was on money and finance. What are your beliefs about money and finance? And it was a lot of fun because people have thousands of beliefs about money and finance that are in the way, right? And some people have great beliefs about money and finance, like I can create anything I want. That's a terrific belief. So the second one, which we just did, is on love and relationships. And again, what fun. We had 300 people register, and there's hundreds and hundreds of beliefs about love and relationships that get in people's way. The next one is in September, and that's going to be on sales and marketing and visibility. It's like, what do you feel about your own ability to get yourself out there in public? And so that's coming up, I think I said on September 28th.
Yeah. What you told me, yeah. September 28th, 10 a.m. Pacific, you said.
Right. And it's completely free. And then we also offer a 3-week program after that if you want to actually clear the beliefs. So, but this is a discovery process. The free one is the discovery. Find out what it is, and then you might want to clear it if you don't like what you just found.
or you can accept it and embrace it like Louis does. It depends on what your approach is, right?
Yeah, we'd all be better off if we were Louis. So
I've actually come to that conclusion after
talking
for years now.
But then there'd be so many of Louis, he'd probably be.
That's true. It gets boring after a while. Which is a mind-boggling concept. The idea of it being boring because there's too many Louis around. That's I'll have to sit with that one for a bit.
Yeah,
right? Because
I tell my wife I would not want to be married to me.
Well, I'll tell you what, we're very grateful.
I love the way opposites attract.
Oh, they really do. We're very grateful for the way you've been sharing all this great stuff. I love your story. I love your approach. Love everything that you're doing. So thank you for that. We already have given them beliefrelief.net, but tell people how to reach out to learn more about the coaching programs and so forth.
Yeah, the coaching training is clearbeliefs.com.
Okay.
And the coaching program, if you want to be coached, is clearyourbeliefs.com.
Okay.
So we got too many websites as usual.
Yeah, that's the way it usually works, right?
And if they want to read my story, my near-death story, and actually at the end of the story, there's a link to the movie that was made based on my story. That's liongoodman.com.
Okay. All right. So we'll get those links into the show notes.
I'd like to have a look at that.
Yeah, very, very good. So thank you for joining us. And something I'm just reminding myself that I've been trying to do with every show. There are many, many people you've been reaching out to over the years who you've never met, you've never seen, you never will meet, you never will see, but you've been touching their lives. You've been affecting them. You've been helping them in ways that you don't even know about, but you have been helping them. And we never get credit for that. So I want to give you credit and say thank you on their behalf for what you've been doing for them.
Thank you. That touches me very deeply, and I actually feel that appreciation out in the world I feel it coming to me. And one of the processes we teach our coaches is called the appreciation process, which actually can transform someone without your saying or doing anything. So appreciation is much appreciated. Thank you for that. And thank you.
Appreciation is a wonderful thing because it can be appreciated, it can be given, it can be taken. There are almost no limits with appreciation.
I believe there are no limits with appreciation.
I said almost. I should probably take that word out, shouldn't I? Yeah. Well, I appreciate this very much. Thank you for spending this time with us. Thank you, Louis, as usual, for your insightful comments.
Thanks, Walt and Lines.
It's been great. Thank you to our podcast listeners everywhere. We will see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.